Welcome, everybody, to Behind the Scenes Live, BTS Live, episode number 9, with me, Marty McPadden, and Mark Rogers. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing great today. How are you?
Very good, very good. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good.
Excellent.
My weekend was
excellent.
good. Got back to work last night.
Oh, very good.
That brings its whole new load of stories and experiences.
Excellent.
For another day.
For everyone watching, first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming for another edition of BTS Live, video production tips and tricks from in front of the camera and behind the camera as well. So I'm Marty McPadden. We got Mark Rogers with us today, as always. And we're trying a little something different. We're iterating the show as we go. So today, we are not only broadcasting to Blab, and you can see in the window here, we are doing a 16 by 9 in the window. But we are also broadcasting using YouTube Live on our landing page, btslive.com. Eventually, we will have a full site as well. What's on the let's see. What's Mike saying? What's left is right, and what's right is left. Now we can see you. So are we? Hopefully, we're showing up properly on Blab and on YouTube on BTS Live. So if you're reading this correctly, we should be good. All right. So anyways, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk about, we went over this very early, I think in our first episode, and this was a suggestion by Walter, who is Knight Rider 57. What website? Let me put that in the chat here. btslive.com is where you can see it. Now, just for the folks that are watching on btslive.com, that is you, Walter. That is correct. It is a 30-second delay. So you're going to want to probably pick one or the other. You can watch it here, or you can watch it in full HD. And the reason why we're doing this is, again, we're demonstrating the different types of streaming you can do, and we're producing this like a real show, like an HD television show, and that's really why we need to use other streaming services. And these are topics we're going to get into in future weeks as well. So let's get right into it as far as the content for today, Mark. And I guess I'll kick things off as far as what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about pre-production planning and why that is important. There you go. I didn't mean to have that kind of crazy transition. But pre-production planning, why is that important? Where I got this idea from is from our Facebook group, and the way you get to that is facebook.com/groups/BTS Live, and this came from Walter in our community, who is Knight Rider 57. He's here in the chat, and he suggested that, what are some suggestions as far as pre-production planning, that type of thing, and that's a very important thing. That's something that a lot of people forget about, how important that is. And I guess what I want to do is kind of break out the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I'm sure that many of you have heard that before. And that really, I think, goes well with today's theme. Preparation is key whenever you're doing video, especially live video. I think, and we'll make this pertinent to Blab since we're on this platform. Many times I see people come on here, and I'm not talking about the casual chatters. Blab is a great video chat platform. If you want to get on casually and just shoot the breeze with friends, it's great for that. And there's not a lot of preparation that's needed for that. I'm talking about the people that are in business, want to do it professionally, and come on, and you could tell the folks that prepare and take the time to do it right, and the folks that kind of just wing it. And it makes a huge difference, and above all, I think you want to really respect your audience. So that's really why you want to prepare. First, have a plan. The first thing you want to do is, create an outline of what you want to cover. So, for example, we cover video production in front of the camera, behind the camera, live streaming, anything to do with production we cover. So when we're planning our shows, what we're doing is we're going to create an outline and know exactly the points we want to cover. So if I'm creating my slides, I'm going to create my slides, my outline, my basically bullet points. Now, I'm not creating a complete script where I'm reading it, because the other thing is you want to know your material, but you want to create a plan as far as the main points you want to cover. And I would go as far as creating bullet points. Beyond that, it gets a little bit where you don't want to be reading your material. You still want to be talking off the cuff and really know it. But start with a plan and know what you're going to be talking about. A good way to come up with topics, and we did this, is ask your audience. The reason why Mark and I do this show is for you guys. We know this stuff. I mean, I'm constantly learning. I know Mark is constantly learning. But the reason why we do the show is to help you guys. I know many of you guys, especially on Blab, may be new to video, don't know where to start. It can get very intimidating, and we really rely on you guys to let us know what you want to know from us. And we're happy to answer questions and cover the topics that are important to you guys. So this topic again came from Walter, one of our community members, Knight Rider 57. And in future weeks, I know many of you have already put in your requests as far as topics we're going to cover, and I've already got ideas for future weeks. I'm probably going to have plenty of topics to cover because of you guys, and I want to cover what you guys. So if you're doing a show, ask your audience what they want to know. Now you've got all that done. You got your outline done. You know what you're going to talk about. So let's get into some of the technicals. What do you want to start with? What do you want to do? First thing you want to do is restart everything. So if you're doing a Blab, you're probably going to use your computer, probably a laptop, a webcam, microphone, that type of thing. Restart your computer. Many of us leave the computers running and don't reboot for days or even weeks sometimes. So restart everything. Reboot your computer, reboot your modem, reboot your router. The reason for that is many times your cable company will send updates, firmware updates down the line, and the only way you're going to get those is to actually reboot your modem every so often. And what I do is I take the opportunity before I'm going to do any kind of streaming or any kind of show. I just take the opportunity to reboot everything at that point. And all it is just unplugging your modem, unplugging your router, wait about a minute, plug everything back in, let it all boot up, ready to go, sync up, and you're set to go. And that just clears everything out. Same thing with your computer. Once you have everything booted up and started up, what you want to do is shut it down. What I mean by shut down anything that's not necessary for the production of your show. Many times, and I've seen this on Blab, since it's browser-based, people will be on, and I'll see people having trouble with buffering and stuttering video. And if you ask them, or if they volunteer the information, lots of times what you'll end up hearing is they have like 70 tabs open. And many of us run multiple tabs, but it's not a good idea when you're trying to stream video, because what's going to happen just in the browser itself is a lot of those tabs are going to be refreshing the background. And anytime something refreshes, it's taking computer resources away and taking bandwidth away from your main objective, which is streaming your show. So when you're doing something, say on Blab, you really just want to have one tab open if possible, and that's the Blab that you're on. And direct all your resources and all your bandwidth to that one window. The other thing is be careful about having other applications open. Shut down your email. Shut down especially file sharing or file syncing programs like Dropbox, or many people have backup apps going. I use a program called Backblaze. A lot of people use Carbonite. These are programs that will back up your computer hard drive to an off-site location, and they operate in the background. Shut those off when you're doing a show. Anything that's going to take away from computer resources or bandwidth, I would shut down. That's absolutely not necessary. Next, you want to get wired. And that's not running around like a crazy person getting wired. I mean, I'm talking about wiring up your internet connection and not relying on Wi-Fi. I see so many times people on Blab or any other streaming will say, what's wrong with my Wi-Fi? I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. The first mistake they're making is actually using Wi-Fi. Now, if you're on a mobile device, you don't have a lot of choice. You have to use Wi-Fi or your LTE or your cellular connection. I'm talking about when you're home and on a laptop, you want to make sure you're hardwired. That's exactly right, Knight Rider, and that's critical. You could be in the same room as your router and have a very strong signal, but since it relies on radio transmission, it is susceptible to interference. So you want to minimize that chance and make sure you're hardwired. The reason for that is, and the reason why it's not as important when you're just web surfing or getting email or just general browsing, is that many times if it's not streaming audio or streaming media, it really doesn't matter what order the packets come down, the data packets, because they'll come down the line and they get reassembled and you have your web page or you have your email message. When you're streaming, everything has to be in order. So if any interruption in that, that's where you see the freezing of the video. Many times you'll see that, or the buffering, or possibly issues with audio. So hardwired, you want to minimize any kind of interference chances happening. Now, can you still get interference? Certainly. There could still be congestion in the line. You could have choke points along the way, depending on how many hops it is between your computer and the destination that you're streaming to. Anything can happen, but you want to minimize issues when you can, and hardwiring the connection will help. Next thing is testing 1, 2, 3. Once you have everything set up, it's very, very, very important to test everything. And I'm not talking about testing it 2 minutes before you go on air. I'm talking about, if possible, testing it a few days before. So you schedule your show, say you schedule a show a week out, right? I would test it, at least a few days before. Get online. If you're doing blab, start a test blab. You can name it test. If people come in a room, it doesn't matter. You're still testing it. Test your microphone. Test your camera. Make sure everything's going well. Test your camera position. Is the camera positioned the way you want it? Is the microphone positioned the way you want it to get best possible sound? Your microphone level's okay. Test that. Test your lighting. Is your lighting good? Is lighting the way you want it? You can adjust that and do all that beforehand. If you do any kind of screen sharing program, many of us use additional software to share slides or images. In fact, what I'm doing right here, I'm using a rather sophisticated switcher and other software to do this. But many people, there's a lot of software packages out there. You want to share slides or images. Test that. Make sure it looks good. When you're creating your slides, especially on Blab, since the window is rather small, you probably want to use a bigger type, a thicker typeface. So test it, see how it looks, and then you can make adjustments. Then doing it a few days ahead of time gives you that buffer time, gives you that time to make adjustments, because inevitably you will have to. I do this all the time, and I've been working all week and just improving our show and making sure everything looked good, and just test. I must have done 100 test streams just to get this show done, but that's what it takes to do that. So once you have all the technicals done, many of us, when we do shows, we have an interview. Maybe we're interviewing somebody, right? They may or may not be familiar with Blab and how to get on, and they may not know, all the technicals and how to make sure that their video and audio sound good. Also test with your person that you're going to interview. So you want to get on, create a test show, test Blab, get on there, go through the checklist with them. Make sure they're comfortable. Make sure they're hardwired if possible. Make sure they're using earphones. Everything we talk about. Make sure their camera's good. Coach them through the lighting. Make sure the lighting's good. Wherever they're going to be for the show, make sure they're in the same location. Test their bandwidth. Make sure everything's going well with that. Teach them what we talk about in this show. Restart everything. Go through all that stuff with them. Do this, several days in advance, and it's much more relaxed that way. You can take your time. You can go through them. Make sure they answer any questions. Make sure they're comfortable with not only the technical setup, but also if you're using Blab, that they're comfortable on the platform itself. Can they see themselves? Do they know how everything works? Just make sure they're good to go. Very, very important. And then, if they're comfortable, your interview is going to be much better, much higher quality. They're not thinking about their setup. They're thinking about discussing with you, answering your questions, having that discussion. Next, start your show early, but I'm going to back up a little bit. Is, we talked a lot about testing. What I would do is before your show, so say if your show is 2 o'clock on Monday, like we do our show here, what you're going to want to do is at least 30 minutes to an hour before, do one more connectivity test where you go on your browser, you make sure your camera settings are right, make sure it's taking the right camera and the right microphone, and set your browser up so that you're ready to go. So when the showtime comes, you're ready to come right in and you don't have those technical difficulties. You want to make it look easy to your audience. They don't know that you're doing all this stuff. If you want to be professional and have a professional look, this is all the kind of stuff you have to do beforehand. So go in there and do one final test 30 to 60 minutes before, make sure everything's working, and then leave it alone. Leave it as is, and then you're ready to go. Then when showtime comes around, what I would advise you to do, and you saw it here today, start your show a little early. I usually target about 10 minutes early, and for a couple of reasons. One, to make sure that there's no last minute issues. And again, I keep going. You're hearing the discussion here. You're hearing layers of backup, layers of planning here. And I kind of get this from my experience when I used to work at ESPN. When you plan a show, the 99% of the stuff that we do, you never see on air because it involves planning, it involves backup plans, it involves going through a checklist, testing, that type of thing. So there's a method to the madness there. So again, start early, start 10 minutes early. That way, if you have any last minute issues, it gives you a little bit of buffer time to remedy that. So maybe your camera setting got switched by mistake, right? Usually that can be remedied very, very quickly. You just back out and come back in again, and you're ready to go. So it gives you some buffer time. And also, the other thing is it gives time for people to come into the room. So on Blab, you can get in, start your show early, tweet it out, make sure you notify your followers, give people a chance to come in, and then you can start your show right on time, and you're ready to go. And lastly, have fun. Once you do all this preparation, then you're much more at ease. So that way in your mind that, okay, I'm ready to go. I know all my technicals are done. I've tested this multiple times on multiple occasions. I'm confident that this is going to work. So that way, that's out of your mind, all right? So then you can concentrate on what your actual content is. And Barb's putting in some great notes in the sidebar there and kind of summarizing what we're talking about here. Kind of the theme here is it's a step-by-step checklist. I think, Mark, I think you can kind of concur here with this whole thing as far as the importance of planning. And Mark, I got you in the 2 box. I know you can't see it, but when I was at ESPN and you're still there, and how important that planning is, and a lot of the discussion that happens, planning shows or big events, 99% of it is pre-planning, and then the 1% is actual execution of the show, and going through which of the 99 plans that you need to execute that particular day. Whether it's a rain plan, weather plan, or if the feed goes down. I mean, you could probably talk to this. I mean, you're involved with it now, right?
We have going on tonight with the college football national championship game, because you've been in the midst of that, and at a place like ESPN, you've got 10 or 12 or 15 safety nets involved to help you out that you don't have personally as your own production company. So the planning is even more crucial, working by ourselves in creating content, and because you want to be deemed as reliable, in addition to having quality content and being somebody that's personable and people want to interact with. You want to be somebody that's reliable. So people want to be able to count on you and count on your product and your content. And if you're not reliable, if it's going to freeze every 10 seconds, if the audio is not what it should be, if those things aren't in place, then people are going to get frustrated. We've talked in recent weeks about all the options that people have out there for quality content or content in general. So people have a very small tolerance for technical issues. And if you lose a viewer, you may lose them forever. They may never come back because they're off to something else. And that's probably the first time that they've tried out your content. And so they're not going to remember to come back. And I'll give them another shot. You've probably lost them forever. So it's very important that, the technical aspect of this is planned out. And I can certainly speak to loads of experience both at ESPN, but also in my own productions when I've had issues and it just doesn't come off well. And you lose that credibility, and that's very important. No doubt.
Absolutely. Mark, I'm not sure if you want to cover anything from in front of the camera. I guess I'll let you take this section of the show.
Yeah. So for those of you who join us on our Facebook page, you got a little bit of a primer, a little bit of a tease, because I'd like to talk about energy. So we all need it. We all want it. We all desire it. We all would love to exude energy in our broadcasting and in our engagement with the audience. It's very important. So I'm not going to speak to today how to get energy. You can do all the standard things, the rest, the exercise, the right nutrition, all that stuff. It's all good things. The hanging around the right people, positive reinforcement, all that. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about displaying energy. So, because if you don't have it, then your audience is going to feed off of that, or they'll fail to feed off of the energy that you're not bringing. Studies show that people that have energy are deemed to be more knowledgeable, to be more credible, more capable. If you interact with somebody who brings a lot of energy to the table, then it's something that people feed off of. Again, those people are deemed to be more confident, more capable. People naturally gravitate to somebody who has high energy. So you want to present your content, and we've talked about this in other shows. The delivery, the presentation also has to be consistent and appropriate to the type of content that you're delivering. So obviously, as Marty said a few minutes ago, you don't want to be wired and running all over the place and have too much inappropriate energy. So it's not necessarily something that's going to be noticeable from a physical standpoint, but you get a sense of who has energy and who doesn't have energy, and it's very important. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is that you shoot your videos, your content, whether you're going live or recording content, that you shoot it at the best time for you. When you're refreshed, when you're focused, when you're relaxed, when you can give it your best effort. Okay, let's transition that. That's the ideal to the real world. When can you do this? So if your schedule's anything like mine, yes, sometimes I can choose, okay, I've got this idea for some content. I'd like to shoot this. I've got a good idea. I've got a topic I want to expound upon. Well, tonight's not really good. It's 2 a.m. I've done all this other work. I'm going to save it for the morning. But there are other times based on your schedule, based on your guest's schedule, based on the immediacy of the content. So that depends on what your topic is. So for me, I have a lot of information that I need to get out there. I need to get my analysis of breaking news within college football out there immediately. If I wait a day, it's old. It's not going to have the influence and garnish the viewership and the feedback that I'd like. So I got to jump on it immediately, regardless of whether I'm prepared, and it's ideal for me to do it right there. So in the real world, sometimes you have to do it now, or do it at a time when you don't naturally have the best energy. So those are things you can't control. You know, for example, my Wednesday every week, I get up early in the morning, I go to work. I'm there for 9 hours. I drive home. I usually knock out about 2 to 3 videos, either my own personal videos, solo videos, or with bloggers and broadcasters. Then I have 3 consecutive half-hour shows that I do. And if you listen to Marty, and we understand the pre-production and post-production involved, and getting people on board, getting them set up. Those half-hour shows exhaust an hour of time at least, getting people comfortable, getting them ready. And so I've got shows at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So by the time I'm knocking out 2 or 3 videos prior to my 3 half-hour shows, and then I do all the post-production to post them to different platforms, it's a 7 a.m. to 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. process. Okay. So especially when I hit that 11 o'clock show, that Pac-12 show that I do, I have to kind of meet the grind head on. I don't feel like sitting here talking to 3 other bloggers about their football teams, and I really am drained. Okay. You have to meet the challenge. You don't want to put out a product that later you're going to regret in regards to your approach. The challenge that I have today, for example, got to bed about 5:36 a.m., got up to do my 1 o'clock show on Blab, do this show, have some other obligations after this, and then I go to work all night at ESPN. We've got the College Football National Championship game, and I've got subscribers and I've got people that are counting on me to recap and analyze the game. Well, I'm going to be working the game, unfortunately. So by the time I get home at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd like to go to bed. I'm not going to go to bed, though. I am going to recap the game, give instant analysis to the game, because that's what people are wanting and waiting for. You can go through the comments. I've got 1,800 videos out there. You can go through the comments, and there are times when people can pick up that, Mark, you're drained. You're not bringing your best. They may not state it quite so well, but the viewer, unfortunately, they don't care. They don't care if you've been up for 18 hours. They don't care. You have to do your best. You have to meet the challenge. So when you can't be refreshed, when you don't have 8 hours of sleep, when this is not the first thing that you're doing all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, when you're dragging, whatever you need to do to get prepared to at least fake it. Splash water on your face. Take a quick shower. Fix your hair. Put on some clean clothes. Do whatever you need to do to wake yourself up, refreshing yourself to meet the challenge of the grind. You kind of have to determine in your mind that you don't want to put out inferior content, and you need to put your best step forward. You need to put your best foot forward and bring that energy, that engagement, regardless of how you feel. You just have to get over with it, and that content that you put out there, it's history. It's documented. It lives forever. It's out there, and you don't want to regret what you put out there. So do all the right things to increase your energy, doing all the right things, the health, the nutrition, the rest, all those things. But when you can't do that, or it's one of those days, you need to fake it. You need to be determined that this is important, and you're going to do what's required to fight through it and bring that energy to the table, because people expect it and people will demand it, and you're going to grab engagement out there and grab people's attention if you're the person that brings energy and passion. So that's pretty much my tip for the day, and hopefully that helped.
That is well said, Mark.
It's not always easy.
No, it's not. It's not. And I don't think people, it's funny, working in television. I had this discussion the other day on Blab. Someone asked me about what is my advice as far as a young person getting into television, getting into the business. Maybe someone coming out of school. Is the intern route a good way to go? Or how would you do that? If you want to work for ESPN or whatever, and there's a lot of different ways you can go. I mean, I would say certainly work at the local level. I know you've done a lot of that. You actually were on air in several markets on the local level as a sports anchor, and kind of working your way up. But as you said before, like you were mentioning how hard it is with the hours, and you're coming home at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you're getting a few hours sleep, and then you're doing everything you do online with your YouTube videos, and even this show as well, and then doing it all over again at ESPN. I mean, I think it takes a degree of dedication. Certainly, I think people see a lot of the fun stuff or the glamorous stuff, but there's a lot of it that's like any other job, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So many things ran through my mind when you talked about my previous jobs being on air, because when you hit that desk or you're doing a live shot in the field, people don't know that maybe you were at the news conference at 8 o'clock that morning and it's now midnight and you're on late due to a late game that pushed the local news late. There are all sorts of crazy stories out there, and from my own experience tracking down coaches at airports, and because there are coaching rumors and issues, and I was up all day with a cameraman, and we were running all over the city and getting interviews and working on stories, and if it's a 14 or 15 hour day, once the light goes on and you've got to deliver the story, people don't care. They don't know what the deal is, first of all. And secondly, they don't care. They want you to deliver, and they have other content options out there that they can go to. So, it's very important that you kind of fight through it, because it's easy to let that energy drain and let it go. And you got to continue to deliver and bring that energy and that engagement, because people are going to feed off of that. And if they don't, they're going to go somewhere else.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I brought up during that discussion on Blab was the mantra of nights, holidays, weekends. You've heard that quote before, right, Mark?
That's right.
I mean, I told the story that I was involved in, and you've been involved in interviews where you've been either a phone interview or been on a panel interviewing, a potential candidate coming into ESPN. And one of the things we always I think we mentioned it like 50 times: nights, holidays, weekends. And anybody who's worked in media or in television can identify, especially in sports broadcasting, because that's when all the events happen: nights, holidays, weekends. And if people have to get that, really own that part of it, and that's why you really have to love what you do if you're going to get into this line of work, is because you'll be doing a lot of nights, holidays, weekends. Mark, you do nights right now a lot of times, right?
Yeah, so I've been at ESPN for 14 years, and you would think after 14 years I could pretty much pick my schedule, but I pick a portion of it. Let's put it that way, and that's what makes it so crazy. But I was there till 3:30 in the morning last night, and tonight with the national championship game, I'll be there all night working on the national championship game as well. So you know that from being there very recently. After your 19-year stay, that you were still slugging it out till what, 1, 2 in the morning, even after 19 years.
Yeah, the last few years I was there, I got it down to I think I've been there when I was there. I think I've been there at least part of every hour of the 24 hours at least once. My least amount of experience, I think, was between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. But I did the morning stint very early in my career, the 4 a.m. shift. So I've been there at least part of every hour of the day and night, at least once. And mainly when I was there, my last several years there was mainly nights. And I worked till at least 1 o'clock in the morning most nights. So it's quite a commitment if you want to be in the business. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade it, the experience, for anything. It taught me a lot. And you have to be passionate, but you do get from rewards. It's very interesting and never boring, and it was a great experience.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so just to allude and go back to a little bit what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, again, real quick. If you can pick and choose, depending on your content, and everybody has a different niche out there. So if your niche is very evergreen based, meaning that it has a shelf life, meaning that you can shoot at any time, by all means, select those times during the day when you feel your best. If you're a night person and you can just rip through it and you're ready to go at 10, 11 o'clock at night, midnight, whatever the case, do it. If it's the first thing in the morning, do it then. So most people, I think, in creating content have those choices to make. But obviously, there's the family schedule, there's the work schedule, and with me, there's the immediacy of dealing with the games and with the stories as they break and needing to get that analysis and that content out there immediately, plus working around my regular job. So I don't have the luxury most of the time to do it when I would like. So you kind of have to, yes, pull yourself together, go through the grind, and bring the energy and give it all you've got. And don't let people know that, hey, you're running on fumes. You just can't let it drag you down, because you have to deliver with the best possible people out there and meet that energy level that's required.
Yeah, so true, so true. It's a great line of work if you're really, really passionate about it. I've learned a lot. I had some great experience there, not only on the production side, but also in the management side, managing people. Learned a lot. Did that for the last 11, 12 years of my 19 years there, more on that side. But yeah, it was great, you know. So I mean, to put a cap on it, we're gonna conclude the YouTube portion of the show, the main part of the show. Just to review what we talked about today was the importance of pre-production, pre-planning, making sure that you have everything ready to go before your show starts, especially when it becomes to live video, because that's the toughest part. That's the toughest type of video to do. It's one thing to do produced video, because you can shoot it, you can stop down, you can edit, and you can make it all nice and pretty. But when you're live like this, once it goes out, you know, and so it's a whole different thing. So preparation is very, very important. That's probably 90% of it, and that's the work nobody sees, and I think that's why people forget about it. And again, it's so important. If you're prepared, then your live production is likely to go that much more smoothly, not only from a production standpoint, from a content standpoint as well. Talked a lot about making sure if you're interviewing someone, include them in on your preparation. Rehearsal is very important. Technical rehearsal is very important. So that's so important to do that. I'm going to wrap this up as far as the YouTube portion. But for those of you on Blab, stay right where you are. We are going to wrap this up and then come back and continue on Blab, and we'll continue recording on Blab, do a little bonus content, bring you guys into the discussion, answer your questions. If anybody wants to hop in the seats, we'd love to have you. But let me finish this. Thanks again for everyone thanks Mark for coming on and being part of the show as well. We'll be back again next week. I'm not it'll definitely be a topic on my side from the Facebook group, and I already got a couple ideas from that. You guys have been terrific on that. Mark, any tease as far as next week, or you want to leave it as a surprise? What was that?
You know better than that. You know, I was
course.
coming up with my topic 45 minutes ago.
There you go.
I do.
But I can tell you we'll be back next. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say we're constantly asking for questions and comments on the side here. I've got a question actually for whomever wants to chime in on this. Right now, the way my Blab is set up, I cannot comment directly to anyone. I can favorite their comment, but I don't have the option to comment back to them directly like I typically do. Does anyone have any idea why?
So you don't see the send a message box there?
I don't have it. I have the star. I don't have the typical reply icon.
That's a good question. I don't know. It might just require a refresh on your part. So once we stop the main portion of the show, what I'll have you do is refresh, get out of. We'll stop down in the Hangout, refresh, and then come back into one of the boxes, and we'll continue the discussion on Blab. It might just be a refresh. Also, make your browser full frame, full window. It just might be cutting off from the responsive part of the site. I don't know. That's weird. But anyways, so guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hang on. If you're on Blab, hang on. We'll be coming right back in and doing a little bonus. But for those of you watching on YouTube, that'll be it. We'll be back again next Monday for another edition of BTS Live. And we will see you then.